Right. So I want you to picture the scene. It's late. The lighting is low, kind of amber hue, the kind that makes everyone look just a little bit better than they actually do.
Hmm.
You're in a bar, probably somewhere tropical. You can just feel the humidity. There's the clink of ice, the hum of people talking, that specific smell of lime and stale beer. And across the room, someone catches your eye.
It's the universal cinematic opening, isn't it? I mean, it's the beginning of 1,000 romance novels, 100 noir films, and probably a million bad decisions.
It is. But
Yeah.
today, we are not looking at a story of romance. And we are definitely not looking at a bad decision, at least not one that gets made by our protagonist.
No, quite the opposite.
Exactly. We're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating piece of lyrical storytelling.
Right.
The song is Tan Lines by Corey Young.
And I'm really glad we're tackling this one because on the surface, you hear a catchy rhythm, you get that summer vibe, and you think, okay, fun beach song. But if you actually strip the melody away and look at this strictly as a text, as a piece of narrative philosophy, it's a surprisingly dense exploration of situational epics.
Situational ethics. I like that.
Yeah.
So let's kind of set the stage for you. What is our mission here today?
Well, we need to unpack the narrator's philosophy. This is a character who's presented with a high stakes moral test, a very attractive, very willing stranger in a bar, and he deconstructs why he has to say no.
And the way he does it is the interesting part.
Exactly. Here's the kicker. He doesn't do it with, fire and brimstone preaching.
Mhm.
He does it through this framework of pragmatism, high level observation, and what I'd almost call karmic physics.
And of course, the central symbol of the whole thing, the tan line itself.
That's it. It's all about how a physical mark on the body becomes a symbol for like a metaphysical weight on the conscience. It's just so much deeper than it has any right to be.
So let's walk through this encounter. The song doesn't waste any time. We're immediately dropped right into the narrator's perspective. He says, I saw you peeking through your mojito glass.
That is such a specific, loaded image to start with. Peeking through your mojito glass.
It's a bit voyeuristic,
Yeah.
right? But it's also blurry.
It is. And think about the optics. A mojito glass isn't clear, like, say, a martini glass. It's thick. It's filled with crushed ice, muddled mint, lime wedges. It distorts your vision.
Yeah.
It's a playful image, sure, but
Yeah.
it also suggests that her view of him, and maybe her view of the whole situation, is refracted. She's looking at him through the lens of the party, the alcohol, the vacation vibe. She's not seeing the reality. She's seeing the fun.
And the narrator picks up on this game immediately. He says she's making a pass, but he doesn't just, puff up his chest. He goes into detective mode. He spots the detail that everyone else in that dimly lit bar would miss.
And this is where the whole thing pivots from a standard flirtation to like a psychological analysis. He says, I can't help but notice, girl, I just gotta ask about your tan lines.
Now, for you visualizing this, we have to assume he's looking at her hand.
Contextually, yes. The ring finger is implied so heavily throughout the text. And this is the core insight of the piece. A ring is an object. It's removable.
Sure.
But a tan line, that's biological.
It's the body keeping score.
That is a great way to put it. A tan line is what we call negative space in art. It's defined by what isn't there. It represents the presence of an absence. It tells the narrator that a ring has been sitting there for a long, long time, long enough to block the sun, long enough to change the pigment of her skin.
So even though she's taken the ring off to play this game in the bar, to be single for the night, the history is literally stamped on her skin. She can't take the history off.
And that's the irony he latches onto. She thinks she's being subtle, hiding her status to have a flame, but by removing the ring, she's actually revealed the depth of her commitment. I mean, a fresh marriage doesn't leave a deep tan line. That mark implies years.
Right. Season.
It implies seasons. It implies a habit.
And he doesn't just judge her from a distance. He immediately brings himself into the equation. He says, underneath this ring, I've got one of my own.
This is so crucial. The listener has to understand his position here. He isn't some single guy judging a married woman. He's a priest. He's a peer. He's in the exact same boat.
But he's still wearing his ring.
He is. But he's acknowledging that physically, underneath that metal, he has the same mark she does. He's saying, we're the same species. They both belong to someone else. He says explicitly he has a sweet one waiting at home.
That phrase, sweet one waiting at home, does so much heavy lifting right there. It immediately juxtaposes the smoky, dark, loud bar with a domestic, safe, quiet reality.
It grounds him. It reminds him and us that he isn't just some unattached entity floating in this bar. He has an anchor. And because he sees that tan line on her hand, he knows she has an anchor too, even if she's trying to drag it along the seabed for the night.
So he identifies the threat, he identifies their shared status, and then he drops the rule. The title of the track, Don't Mess with Tan Lines.
It sounds like a survival heuristic, doesn't it? Like, red sky at morning, sailors take warning.
Or don't poke the bear. Don't
Mhm.
swim right after eating.
Right. It's not necessarily a high moral commandment like, thou shalt not commit adultery. It feels more like practical advice for staying alive. Don't mess with it.
And this leads us to the chorus, where he breaks down his reasoning.
Yeah.
And this is where I think the song gets really, really smart. He doesn't say, I'm not going to cheat because I'm a saint.
No, he says they're just so complicated.
Complicated. That is such a mundane, almost bureaucratic word for an affair, but it's incredibly accurate.
It just strips the romance right out of it. We usually think of affairs and songs as, passionate or forbidden or wild. He's calling it a logistical headache.
He's doing a cost-benefit analysis. He looks at the mojito glass flirtation and he just fast-forwards the tape in his head. He says, somebody always ends up getting frustrated.
Yes. He's looking past the sex, past the one night in the hotel, to the inevitable emotional knot that follows, the lies you have to tell, the texts you have to delete, the paranoia.
It's so pragmatic. He's basically saying, I'm too tired for all that drama.
There's a bit of that, sure. But then he escalates the warning. He moves from frustrated to something more visceral. He says, it might sound fun, but one thing I've learned is to stay away from tan lines because you'll always get burned.
Okay, we have to talk about burn. That's clearly doing double duty there.
Bro, it's a classic double entendre. On the literal level, we're talking about sun exposure. If you ignore the sun's power, if you expose skin that hasn't seen the light in years, what happens? You get a sunburn. You get physical pain.
And on the metaphorical level,
Getting burned is the universal idiom for a bad deal, right? A betrayal, getting caught. In the context of relationships, getting burned means the explosion of your life. The divorce, the guilt, the loss of reputation.
and notice the absolute language he uses there. He doesn't say you might get burned. He says you'll always get burned.
That's his worldview. He sees this as a law of physics. There is no version of the story where you cheat on a spouse with another married person and it ends in a happily ever after. It always ends in ash. The tan line is a warning label, like on a pack of cigarettes or a high voltage fence.
So if the tan line is the physical evidence and getting burned is the inevitable result, why do people do it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why is this woman in the bar making the pass? She knows she has the tan line. She knows her ring is probably in her purse.
Well, the narrator actually has a theory about that too.
Right. The out-of-town myth.
The out-of-town myth. It's this fascinating piece of psychology embedded in a country song. The lyrics go, you think you're safe because you're out of town.
And this taps into a very real phenomenon, right?
All right.
That we often treat travel or vacations as these,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call them? Liminal spaces?
Liminal spaces, exactly. It's a threshold, a space between. When people are in airports or hotels or foreign cities, they often feel like the social contracts of their normal lives are suspended.
They feel anonymous.
Totally anonymous. They think, my neighbors aren't here, my boss isn't here, my spouse isn't here, so I'm not really me right now. I'm a vacation version of me.
It's the what happens in Vegas mentality. Morality is attached to a zip code. If I cross the state line, the rules just reset.
Precisely. She thinks that because she's out of town, the rules of her marriage don't apply. She's created a compartment for this behavior. She thinks she's invisible because nobody in this bar knows her name.
But the narrator just completely destroys this idea. He counters it with, after all these years, there's one thing I've found. What you do right now, it'll come back around.
He's rejecting that linear idea of leaving things behind. He's introducing a circular concept of time karma.
It'll come back around. It sounds like he's talking about a boomerang.
Or the shape of the ring itself, a circle. He's saying that you cannot outrun your own actions. You can fly 5,000 miles away, you can drink a dozen mojitos, but if you break a promise here, the shock wave travels back home with you.
The tan line is the proof that you can't escape your context.
Yes, you bring your history with you on your hand.
It's interesting that he frames this as wisdom. After all these years, there's one thing I've found. It implies he might have learned this the hard way, or at least he's seen enough people crash and burn to know the pattern.
Oh, for sure. He's definitely positioning himself as the elder statesman of the bar. He's seen this movie before, and he knows the ending sucks. He's trying to save her and himself from the sequel.
So we've got the setup, the analysis of the symbols, and his rejection of the whole vacation loophole. But this song doesn't just stop at looking. The interaction escalates. We move from the visual to the physical.
It gets real. Not in a sexual way yet, but in a tangible way. The lyrics say, that room key in your hand.
That's such a powerful prop. A room key is a direct invitation. It's access. It's moving from flirting to logistics.
And think about the tension there. She's not just smiling anymore, she is actively offering him a key to a private space. The temptation is no longer abstract, it is plastic and magnetic, and it is right there in front of his face. It's the moment of truth.
And his response doesn't change my promise.
That is just stoicism at its finest.
It really is. Doesn't change my promise. It suggests that the promise he made to the sweet one waiting at home is an independent object. It doesn't dissolve just because a room key appears.
You know, a lot of people operate on conditional morality. I'll be faithful unless I'm lonely or drunk or a really attractive person offers me a room key. The narrator operates on absolute morality.
Yeah.
The promise is the promise. The external circumstances, the mojito, the lights, the key, they're all irrelevant to the existence of that promise.
And then he delivers the line that I think sums up this entire deep dive today. This is the resolution of the moral arc. He says, the only thing I'll sleep with tonight is a clear conscience.
It's a mic drop moment. It really is.
It's such a clever linguistic flip.
Yeah.
Sleeping with usually implies the physical act, the sex. He subverts it to talk about his own mental state.
He is engaging in a value comparison. This is pure economics of the soul. On one side of the scale, he has the fun, the adrenaline, the sex, the story. On the other side, he has a clear conscience. And he realizes he cannot have both.
They're mutually exclusive.
Correct. To take the key is to lose the conscience. To keep the conscience is to reject the key.
Mhm.
And he values his ability to sleep soundly, without guilt, without the fear of getting burned, more than he values that momentary pleasure.
It goes right back to that idea of complicated.
Mm.
A guilty conscience is complicated. It keeps you up at night. It makes you check your phone constantly. It makes you paranoid.
A clear conscience is simple. It's quiet. And for this narrator, that piece is worth more than the encounter. He knows that the sweet one waiting at home is worth more than the pan line in the bar.
And he wraps up the song by drilling that mantra into his head again.
Because I stay away from tan lines. They're just so complicated. It's almost like he's walking away from her, repeating this to himself to make sure he keeps walking.
It reinforces the lesson. He's not wavering. He successfully navigated the test. He stepped right up to the line, he looked at the consequences, and he stepped back.
So when we look at this entire narrative arc, it's really a story about awareness, isn't it?
It is. It's about reading the room in the deepest possible sense. Most people read the room to see who's attractive. The narrator reads the room to see who's dangerous, not physically dangerous, but emotionally dangerous.
He sees the tan line not as a flaw, but as a do not enter sign.
Or a high voltage sign, yeah.
Exactly. And he recognizes that vacation mode is just an illusion. The reality is the commitment he left at home and the commitment she's trying to hide. He refuses to pretend that geography changes who he is.
It challenges you, the listener, to look at the world that way, to stop looking at just the surface level fun and start looking for the complications hidden underneath. It's about foreseeing the burn before you even strike the match.
It's funny because Tan Lines sounds like it should be a song about, summer romance, but it's actually a song about the discipline of remaining faithful.
It's a parable, a honky-tonk parable. It teaches that you are never truly anonymous. The tan lines on your skin betray you, and the karma of your actions will always find you.
It really makes you look at your own hands differently.
It does. It forces you to ask, what
Yeah.
signs am I carrying around? What evidence is on me right now?
And that brings us to the thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this time breaking down the symbolism of the tan line, this physical mark that reveals a truth you might be trying to hide.
The evidence of the ring, even when the ring is gone.
Right. The narrator warns that what you do right now, it'll come back around. He believes in the visibility of our actions. So here's the question for you to mull over as you go about your day.
I'm ready.
If your current actions, not your past, but the things you are doing right now,
Yeah.
today, were to leave a physical mark on your body like a tan line for everyone to see, would you be comfortable with what those marks reveal?
That's uncomfortable to think about. That's radical transparency.
It is. We all like to think we have our secret out-of-town compartments where we can hide our bad habits or compromises. But if the narrator's right, those compartments don't exist. We wear our history. And maybe if we lived like those marks were always visible, like we couldn't hide the tan lines, we'd all sleep with a clearer conscience.
Keep an eye out for the tan lines.
Thanks for listening to Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.